We're now in the final step of the FMEA process. We'll go over to the FMEA tab. We have assessed the effects, the likelihoods, the mitigations, and now at this point in time, we have we're going to close out some of these mitigations. So let's take a look at this one. Let's close this one out. Let's assume that somebody has closed out these top two. Okay, so at this point in time, the first two have been fixed. And so we go over to residual risk. And now you can see I've updated the residual risk here. The existence likelihood before for this was much higher than 1. 1's the lowest risk. The control was actually a 10 because it's not controlled at all. And the detectability was quite high. You can see here. So what we're going to do is we're going to set, we now have confirmation. You only do this when there's confirmation. Someone has removed this issue. So we can set existence to a 1. The manifestation remains the same. Even if the problem occurs, it's still a double point failure. So we don't change that. The control, we now have a control in place for this, which is continuous monitoring to make sure that that's not out of range and that the values inside are allowed. Detectability, we're going to set that to a 1.0 because we now have test procedures. And so our severity here is still a 10. That is still valid. The severity does not change for software. People think it does. It does not. There are extremely rare cases when the severity might change where something might be made less bad. But just because you mitigate something doesn't mean the severity has changed. The severity is always a 10. What is changed is the likelihood now that it's controlled. So we take the average of these, of the likelihoods, we get the average is 2.5. The severity is still a 10. And so now we can change this to a 25. Okay, so at this point, we can overwrite what was originally assessed based on what was done. So if we mitigated it but didn't have a test procedure, then we don't change the detectability column. If we mitigated it but didn't have any actual real controls in place to keep it from happening everywhere, then we wouldn't change that. So we only change the likelihood column that reflects the things that we've actually done. If we've made it more detectable with the test procedure, we can reduce the risk. If we have a control in place, we can reduce the risk. And if we've mitigated it, we can reduce the existence risk. So at this point, this is an ongoing process between the FMEA being closed out. Software engineering will almost never close out all of these at once. In fact, they may choose not to close some of them out at all. And so the residual risk is going to get updated really pieces at a time as corrective actions are made. It's entirely possible that the software group makes 2 or 3 fixes that actually address several CVEs. So for example, with this data availability here, they might have 1 fix really for everything. That's a possibility with software. So as the fixes are made and the tests are run, we go over here, we change the status in the status column to show which ones are done, and then we update the risk assessment in the residual risk tab. Now I'll show you very quickly how to finish up your FMEA. You can do this at any time. You can exclude any FMEA rows that are not relevant. You can exclude failure modes that are in a certain range. Let's say the low range, you could exclude those. You can also filter by hazard. You can pick any one of the hazards that we've identified and export out only those. When you're doing an import, so a lot of people, very common, you want to export the worksheet, work on it offline, maybe email it to some people. Don't set any of these items here. I recommend that you not do that. although you can, you certainly can exclude anything you want, but export the whole worksheet, just name it to something, and then we'll go through a process here. Okay. You can see that it's been fixed. So let me go and open up that spreadsheet. It will be in our exports folder. And you can see what the export looks like here. And so you can change any of the columns that are not read-only. Do not change the first two columns. That is very, very important. Do not change those. Do not add rows that aren't there. They'll be ignored. Just change the things that you analyze, largely the effects and the compensating provisions. If you change the likelihoods, the software is just going to overwrite those. So that's where use the overrides if you want to change the likelihoods. Okay, so then once you've done some editing, you can import it here. You can see we recommend doing the save as. The import function is going to write over whatever's in the database. And so we recommend you save as before doing it. And we're reminding you not to change the first two columns of the worksheet. We select one of these imports. I'm not going to do it now. And it will basically import the changes. The changes that it'll import is anything that's not read-only. Okay, thank you very much.